Happy Tuesday, friends. Today we are going to be using our background knowledge to draw conclusions, and we're going to be listening to a familiar story, Alexander and the Very Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. So before we start, our statement is good readers use background knowledge, pictures, and context clues to draw reasonable conclusions about a story. So here's our story, Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. This is a familiar story that we actually have in our classroom. We read it before in our class when we talked about cause and effect. So you're probably going to make some connections as we listen to this story today. I'm going to be stopping to ask questions and do a little bit of a chart and activity. All right, here we go.
And the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. Written by Judith, voiced, illustrated by Ray Cruz. I went to sleep with gum in my mouth, and now there's gum in my hair. When I got out of bed this morning, I tripped on the skateboard, and by mistake, I dropped my sweater in the sink while the water was running, and I could tell it was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. At breakfast, Anthony found a Corvette Stingray car kit in his breakfast cereal box, and Nick found a Junior Undercover Agent code ring in his breakfast cereal box. But in my breakfast cereal box, all I found was breakfast cereal. I think I'll move to Australia. In the carpool, Miss Gibson let Becky have a seat by the window. Audrey and Elliot got seats by the window too. I said I was being scrunched. I said I was being smushed. I said if I don't get a seat by the window, I'm going to be car sick. No one even answered.
Okay, so we're going to stop on this page. We are practicing thinking about what we already know as we read to better understand the story. So we're putting information together to draw conclusions. So let's think about the story and identify what we already know to answer this question. So the question is, why does Alexander not want to sit in the middle? So let's think. That's the question. So we can use picture clues from the text to help support our thinking. So let's look at this picture. Alexander's face, he looks sad, angry, and frustrated throughout the book. We can tell that from the pictures. So I know when I have a very bad day, I feel sad, angry, and frustrated. So let's look at this chart, and it's similar to our drawing conclusions anchor chart that we used yesterday, where we use information from the text, what we already know, and we draw a conclusion. So here we go. So our question is, why doesn't Alexander want to sit in the middle? The information from the story is that Alexander says he's scrunched and smushed. Yes, we read that on that page. So plus what you already know, that whenever in our, if we use our background knowledge, we know that if I sit in the middle, I feel like I don't have enough room. So the conclusion is Alexander probably feels like he needs more room and wants to sit by the window. And we can all relate to that and make a connection, because I know that I like sitting by the window and I would not want to sit in the middle of during carpool. All right, let's keep going. So, how was I able to figure out that Alex did not want to sit in the middle? We looked at the pictures and we thought about, how we would feel if we were to sit in the middle. Let's keep going.
I could tell it was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. At school, Miss Dickens liked Paul's picture of the sailboat better than my picture of the invisible castle. At singing time, she said I sang too loud. At counting time, she said I left out 16. Who needs 16? I could tell it was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. I could tell because Paul said I wasn't his best friend anymore. He said that Philip Parker was his best friend and that Albert Moyo was his next best friend and that I was only his third best friend. I hope you sit on a tack, I said to Paul. I hope the next time you get a double-decker strawberry ice cream cone, the ice cream part falls off the cone part and lands in Australia. There were 2 cupcakes in Philip Parker's lunch bag, and Albert got a Hershey bar with almonds, and Paul's mother gave him a piece of jelly roll that had little coconut sprinkles on the top. Guess whose mother forgot to put in dessert? It was a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. That's what it was. Because after school, my mom took us all to the dentist, and Dr. Fields found a cavity just in me. Come back next week and I'll fix it, said Dr. Fields. Next week, I said, I'm going to Australia.
Okay, we're going to pause right there, and we're going to practice making some conclusions again. We're going to answer a question and make conclusions to find our answer. So we're going to practice using information from the text and what we already know to draw a conclusion. So, the question is, why does Alexander say he is going to Australia next week? So, think about what you know from the story. And in the story, he has a cavity and has to come back and get it fixed next week. All right? And what information that we already know, so our background knowledge, is that we've been to the dentist and getting a cavity fixed can hurt. So the conclusion that I can make is that he doesn't want to go back next week, so he lies and says he'll be in Australia. And here is a chart so that you can see. The question was, why does Alexander say he's going to Australia next week? Information from the story is he has a cavity and has to come back and get it fixed next week. What I already know is I've been to the dentist, and getting a cavity fixed can hurt. And even if you've never been to the dentist, you can just imagine that it probably hurts. And the conclusion I can draw from this information to answer the question is he doesn't want to go back next week, so he lies and says he'll be in Australia. Okay, we're going to finish the book.
On the way downstairs, the elevator door closed on my foot, and while we were waiting for my mom to get the car, Anthony made me fall where it was muddy, and then I started crying because of the mud. Nick said I was a crybaby, and while I was punching Nick for saying crybaby, my mom came back with the car and scolded me for being muddy and fighting. I'm having a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day, I told everybody. No one even answered. So then we went to the shoe store to buy some sneakers. Anthony chose white ones with blue stripes. Nick chose red ones with white stripes. I chose blue ones with red stripes. But then the shoe man said, "We're all sold out." They made me buy plain old white ones, but they can't make me wear them. When we picked up my dad at his office, he said I couldn't play with his copying machine, but I forgot. He also said to watch out for the books on his desk, and I was careful as could be except for my elbow. He also said don't fool around with his phone, but I think I called Australia. My dad said please don't pick him up anymore. It was a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. There were lima beans for dinner, and I hate limas. There was kissing on TV, and I hate kissing. My bath was too hot. I got soap in my eyes. My marble went down the drain, and I had to wear my railroad train pajamas. I hate my railroad train pajamas. When I went to bed, Nick took back the pillow he said I could keep, and the Mickey Mouse nightlight burned out, and I bit my tongue. The cat wants to sleep with Anthony, not me. It has been a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. My mom says some days are like that, even in Australia.
Okay, so that's the end of our story. You are going to be answering the question, your question that you're going to be answering is, why does Alexander's dad say, please don't pick me up? You are going to see a chart that looks like this. It will be emailed out, it will be located in the some more and in the lessons. And you're going to have to use information from the story and what you already know to draw a conclusion to answer the question. Why does Alexander's dad say, please don't pick me up anymore? This also may require you to kind of go back in the video and listen to the story, the ending of the story at least again, or maybe the whole story again, in order to answer the question. So also, in the story, Alexander, he keeps talking about Australia. What do we know about Australia? Let's look. I pulled up a map of Australia for us. Okay, so here is Australia right here. Australia is an island nation in the Pacific Ocean. So here's the Pacific Ocean. It's in the Pacific Ocean. Australia is known for their wildlife like crocodiles and kangaroos. Australians also speak English, though it sounds different than American English. They call it like an accent. So, why do you think Alexander wants to go to Australia to escape his terrible day? Why would he want to go to Australia to escape his terrible day? So also, let's look where Australia is in location to us. We're right here, North Carolina, right here, where my arrow is. That's us, right there. So Australia is going this direction over the Pacific Ocean, and there it is. So we learned about Christopher Columbus, and he travels over the Atlantic Ocean, but in order to get to Australia, we'd have to go across the United States. Maybe, that's one option. And then this way to the Pacific Ocean. We also could go through the Atlantic Ocean, down and around, and South America, and that's how we could get there also. Thanks for joining. And I'll be looking for your completed charts about the question, why does Alexander's dad say, please don't pick me up anymore?